every deck that runs this alignment, every deck that runs this alignment has these cards that are almost always 3 auto includes, and they should be like somewhere like a healing. You should auto include healing, obviously, but if they're not auto include just for the healing, if they're included for an effect, that's when you know the card is a little overpowered. Like how Root Singer was extremely overpowered. You always later in any nature deck because of the Graveyard Recursion. You always include Tentacles in every Dread deck or any other deck that plays abilities because it's so good. Like those are the cards that need to be kind of nerfed so that there can be variety in deck building. Where, yeah, you use it for like healing, perfect. If it has a Bundle effect, awesome. But because of its just utility, there's no reason not to run it in every single deck. That's kind of what I'm going for right now. Blinding Beetle, I think is the perfect one to start on. 3 attack cards. Should just be 3 action attack cards. This should not be able to remove combos. This should not be able to remove combos from your hand. Because if you look at the combo that I run, Eclipse, to attack action cards. Eclipse is the same thing as Blinding Beetle, but this says action. Why does a combo do less than an action card? I don't understand that. Blinding Beetle should be to attack action cards. That's what it should be, so that it can't move combos back. It can't, like, completely disrupt someone. Let's see, what other cards have I found in here that are just bonkers nuts? Infiltrator I'm actually fine with. I'm fine with Infiltrator. Lookout's going away. It has decent utility. Yeah, I think Blinding Beetle is one of the only ones in here that I'm kind of like on. Do you think this rotation changes coming will make the game more diverse? I can't say for sure because I don't know what Uprising is going to bring. But truth be told, I want to say yes. I think it'll help it be more diverse, if only for the fact that about 90% of the problematic cards that are in this game right now in the digital format are all getting rotated. They're all getting rotated. You can't use them in ranked anymore. I think it'll make the game a lot more diverse. Obviously, there's still going to be people out there who find broken decks, who find ways to build the 100% lockout like Bova and Cosmo did. They're still going to find ways to be bonkers. I know right when the game came out, right when Kindred dropped, Superior Seekers, the team, built a deck because Flynamo was busted. If you don't know what Flynamo does, Flynamo did gain 1 healing for under 20, gain an additional action without stat restrictions. So it was a free 1 healing defendability and gain an additional action without stat restrictions. Like, that was bonkers. It made it so superiority didn't make any difference. You didn't need it at all to lay 2 of the same action cards. But they made a Blacktail deck. They made a Blacktail deck where it inevitably had a board state where it could deal over 200 damage in 1 turn. Over 200 damage in 1 turn. And I was just like, how? They even showed it to Play Fusion, and Play Fusion was like, that is not what we were intending. Oh my god. And then after the U.S. Nationals, when they brought it, they had to errata a whole bunch of cards and whatnot. I guess that's my question. Rotating a lot of these cards seems to be a start. I did read that one other site to why they feel this rotation is so important. No, I mean, it really is. It really is. But yeah, if there's a way to break it, someone will find it, which is why we got a lot of these digital erratas, some sooner than later, because people have been breaking the game. Like, that's just bonkers nuts. But yeah, I think Blinding Beetle needs to be changed to maybe even only 1 attack action card, maybe not 2, and then have Eclipse be 2 action cards, so the combo buff is better than the action card itself. Wandering Starformer might just 3 damage, might be a little too much damage. I don't know, maybe not. A lot of people run it. I mean, aggro Astral is just super high value right now, super high value. But yeah, in Astral, I think the #1 card that does need to change, and as much as I love it, is Blinding Beetle, because it can remove combos. It's so good at hand disruption. And because, like, the best play in the game for Control Astral is Blinding Beetle, heal for 3, then Dusk Beater, because it's solar, heal for 7. So you heal for 10, move 2 attack cards back. Like, that is just bonkers control for any Astral. And it's burst healing. You move 2 attack cards, so you lower their aggression, unless they're playing a buff-heavy deck, which I doubt it. And then you have Lunar on top, and if they are playing buff-heavy deck, Lunar's on top so you can Pathfinder next turn. Like Astral lines up so flawlessly to have these really synchronous in turns that it's how Astral works. It's how it should work. But I do think that Blinding Beetle is one of the problematic cards that even if you play aggro, you play 3 Blinding Beetles because you slow down your opponent. If you play control, you play Blinding Beetle because you slow down your opponent. Like, you almost don't run it for the healing. You run it for the hand disruption. Do you have a physical collection as much as your online collection? How did you accumulate your collection? Yeah, actually, my physical collection is 6,052 cards. Right there. And there are some cards, like some heroes, that I don't own that I had to get physically. And how I won those is literally through tournaments. I won 6 of my 7 Kindred boxes through tournaments. I only bought 1 of them. I won 3 Mythic boxes out of my 4 through tournaments. I think Awakening is the only one that I actually bought. It's like Dread with Wall of Bones and the combo one with a 4 reduction. For me, it feels like kind of a waste. Use the combo card. Dread with Wall of Bones and the combo one with the 4 reduction. Oh, yeah, you're, yeah, I mean, but then again, I mean, you could run into, I think the reduction one is only, is it attacks? No, the Shadow Form is only attacks. But yeah, I think Blinding Beetle needs to be changed in Astral. Everything else they've changed for the better, and I think it's good. It's just like Blinding Beetle is so good. If anything, make Blinding Beetle a lunar card. Make it a lunar card so you can't Blinding Beetle into Duskfeeder. If it's healing, there's no reason Solar should have healing. If Solar's their attack. Like, I don't understand why. So there's some changes you could do. Where are you from? I'm to Chicago, and the only place I feel like I can play is like an hour away, but I know it's pretty solid shop for light seekers. Truth be told, you're talking about TPK Gaming, because that is an amazing shop to go to. I'm actually from Wisconsin, so I'm just north of you. But yeah, TPK Gaming is an amazing place to go play light seekers. I highly recommend it. Now we're on a Dread. Obviously, problematic. Abyss Tentacle. There's two things that Abyss Tentacle can do. Either give it burn, or make it so they have clunky corners so they don't get infinite value out of a tentacle. Or make it unique. Make it unique so you can't have multiples out. 3 changes right there. They could make Tentacle still decent, but you would not be able to have a full board of tentacles and just blow them out for like 36 damage. You can only have 1 out. Give it unique. That's awesome. Give it unique. Give it burn. Same thing as Bubble Nasher. Give it unique and give it burn. Golden. Only way to really lay them is 1 out at a time. There's no point in laying a second one. So you can play around that, but you do not get that outstanding burst value from Tentacle. Give it unique and give it burn. That's what I would do with Tentacles. Then you can keep it as the no corner. And if they waste all their buff removal, then you can lay 1 late game and have it stick to board. That's fine. But then you can't also return if it has burn. You can't return it to your hand and get laid again for additional action. Those would be awesome. Give it burn and give it unique. Tentacle would be so much better. Does unique mean you can only have 1 in your deck or 1? Only 1 in play. Only 1 in play. Truth be told, that's actually another video I'd like to discuss. They need to Solar War, Roaming Zombie, instant death early game. Yeah, if your opponent plays Solar War and you lay Roaming Zombie, yeah, that's instant death. You can have 2 or 3 on the board, but only 1 will trigger. Exactly, Livramento, exactly. But that's another thing that I want to talk about is, I'll just kind of sidestep this. With how well presented the Classic format was, with how well it was received, I think they should implement a new keyword so that you can only have 1 card of it in the deck. And obviously unique is taken, but they should implement a new keyword into the game where you can only have 1 of it in your deck. With how much Graveyard Recursion you can bring that stuff back, but being able to only have 1 will really help make deck building more dynamic, I think. And 1 is discarded if you play another, or does it? So what happens? What happens is if you play 1 and then lay a second one, the second one is just dormant. It's still on the field. It's just dormant and doesn't do anything until the other one goes away. So you're allowed to play it. It's sitting there as a dead buff that does nothing. It's dormant. So yeah, give Abyss Tentacle unique and give it burn. Then it can stay like this, or give it unique and give it clunky corners. Make it a flying fortress. That's a-okay with me. The triggers off abilities. whereas Flying Fortress triggered off drawing defend cards. Make something similar to that, because those cards were good changes, and Abyss Tentacle needs a change. Oh god, it needs a change. Abyss Weaver's leaving, so that's fine. Because, yeah, they have Graveyard Recursion, Graveyard Recursion. Abyss Shade is Graveyard Recursion. Like, they have so much Graveyard Recursion. So is Burn... what Burn does is... Burn has two things to it, truth be told. Burn means that it cannot be returned... Once it's on the board, it cannot be returned to your hand. It's stuck on the board. There it is. And if it's in your discard pile, it's still in your discard pile. It's not removed from the game entirely. It cannot be returned from the discard pile. So if it's on top, and you lay something like the Geode Hatchling that can return stuff, or you lay a Necro Dreadling, you can't bring it back from your discard pile to your hand or deck. Burn means pretty much wherever it is at, it is there. It cannot be moved. It can be removed, but it cannot be moved anywhere else. That's what Burn means. Defiler's getting rotated out. Devour's getting rotated out. Dust Down Assassin. I'm actually okay with Dust Down Assassin. That's completely fine. The only reason Dust Down Assassin is so bonkers is because of the tentacle. That's the only reason it's so bonkers. Mimicking Horror's getting rotated out. That's fine. Necro Dreadling. Necro Dreadling needs to be like one action card or 2 defend cards or something. It should not be 3 action cards. This card is always better than Rootsinger. Even putting it back in your deck with how late game Dread is, it's so good. So good that it needs to be limited. When you have Graveyard Recursion, you need to limit your Graveyard Recursion, or just limit the amount that you can have in the deck. Having one Rootsinger in Casual was A-okay, because you knew, hey, you laid it once, good, that's fine. This you could literally run 3 of, and you can always get back Tentacles and always just keep playing that late game, and you'd always get value. All you had to do was heal and make sure you survived to the point where your opponent couldn't do anything to you. That Necro Dreadling needs to get changed to either be like 1 action card or 2 defend cards or something. Something to that extent where it's just not 3. 3 is way too much. 3 is way too much, in my opinion. I think that Necro Dreadling needs to get changed. Because, yeah, even this is move 2 discarded defend action cards. Yeah, it's to your hand, but you still have to discard a card. Like, there's definitely a difference in that. What if they just made it a combo card? Are you talking about Necro Dreadling? I mean, essentially they did make Necro Dreadling a combo card. That is getting rotated out. It's called Ghostly Grasp. Move 3 discarded action cards to your hand. They essentially made Necro Dreadling a minor version of this, but it moves them to your deck and not your hand. But it's still the same amount, which is what is so good about it. It moves way too many cards back of non-restricted as long as it's not a combo. But then, of course, I mean, if you want to move combos back, you have Blood Pact Redeemer, and yeah, truth be told, it's getting rotated out, so you don't have to worry about it as soon as Uprising comes out. But they have Blood Pact Redeemer to return combos, and they also have the card that's getting rotated out, Spirit Gate. If I can find you. Spirit Gate. Return 2 combo cards to your deck. Draw a card. Yeah, that card is it's getting rotated out. So after Uprising, that card will go. So is Spirit Gate. But like I said, and Swamp Creeper I think is also getting rotated out if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, like move 2 discarded action cards to your deck. This is actually fine, because if you lay this, in my opinion, it should only have 2 corners. It should not be able to move these 2. But it's getting rotated out, so I'm not that upset by it. But this one also should have, like, you can only have 1 in a deck, or something like that. Because it is only used late game after the buff removal and stuff like that. But, like, it just look at every single card that Dread has for Graveyard Recursion, that because they don't have so many cards with Burn outside of their cards that are Graveyard Recursion, their Graveyard Recursion becomes the best in the game to then get the best value. Like, the only reason this has Burn is because it moves your last discarded card to your deck. It can give you a combo. That's redonkulous. Like, they just have so many cards that just return cards from their discard pile to their deck that Dread Stall also used to be a thing, but now that Tentacles are just Tentacles, you just get constant value out of them, and it's nuts. It's bonkers. Yeah, where was it? I mean, yeah, Necro Dreadling needs a nerf. Tentacle needs a nerf, especially since those are still staying in after the rotation. They're staying in. Um, that's getting removed. Hexmaster's getting taken out. Night Lurker's getting taken out, so those are fine. Necrophant's staying in. But again, this is 2 defend cards. This is very much limited, where Necrophant is fine. Necrophant feels fine, because you bring it back to your hand, but then you discard a card too. So like it has so much to work around it where it's not the best benefit. So that's A-okay with me. That's getting rotated out. These are fine buffs. Everything is fine here. Putrid Charm is getting rotated out. Shade Whirler is getting rotated out, but like people don't use Shade Whirler a whole lot. Shadow Supplier. Is Shadow Supplier getting rotated out or not? Can someone confirm that? Is Shadow Supplier staying in, or is it getting rotated? Is it staying in, or is it getting rotated? Because I think the way that Dread plays, with how many consistent buffs it has on boards that don't rotate out, Shadow Supplier in itself is bonkers nuts. And the way I would change Shadow Supplier is either change the corners so it's right here, so you don't have as much time to lay it to get your buff value out. Because a lot of people will lay this, and then they'll draw, obviously, and then they'll buff with all their constant buffs that don't rotate or don't do anything, and then Shadow Supplier just refills their whole hand. So it's either you kill the card draw, or you kill the boards, the buffs that they just laid, and you determine, like, okay, which one's worse value for me, because all those buffs are going to stay, and they start using abilities to kill you with them. Or you kill those, and Shadow Supplier just draws them cards, and they're like, well, now they get to start all over. That I think Shadow Supplier should be, like, right here. Should be right here. Still should read the number of buffs, but it should limit it to, like, 3 or 4. Max. I've seen Shadow Supplier draw someone, like, 7 cards, just because of how many buffs they're about to lay on board. I think Shadow Supplier, if it stays in, needs a nerf. Just because of all the consistent buffs that Dread has that have clunky corners and don't rotate out as well. Kind of the same issue, like, hey, if Water had clunky corner buffs, Blammo would be awesome, because you'd be able to lay your buffs on board and they wouldn't rotate, you wouldn't have to worry about all that stuff. That Dread does it really well, and then Shadow Supplier is just something bonkers for Dread. Maybe it would be interesting if other cards could give cards in discard piles burn. There is an unaligned card. There is an unaligned card, now that you say that, called the Font of Misfortune. Cards in all heroes' discards piles have burn. Corner 1 is damage to the target. The reason this is not run is because if this comes down, all you have to do is, like, Shadow Puppet it, or wait for it to rotate out. All you have to do is wait for it to rotate out. This card needs something where it says, like, cannot be returned or removed by the other hero. Like, it's stuck on the board for 4 turns, so you have to really lay this card properly. It can still be brought back from the graveyard, like, it doesn't have burn. It can't be removed or returned by other hero, or by anyone. Like, cannot be removed or returned. And then Font of Misfortune, I think, would be really good. And I think adding that to Draga Hoarder as well. I need 3 copies of Crushing Charger. Draga Hoarder, having the same thing on Draga Hoarder, cannot be removed or returned, would make Draga Hoarder really good. It would make almost... It would kind of kill Mill, but at the same time, Mill has so much buff removal, because it's just control, right? Mill is just control, that you really have to, like, try and make them discard 3 times before this goes away. Because you can't remove it or return it, that you have to use your Mill cards on it to make this go away. That I think having those 2 on those 2 buffs would make them really key cards to counter some of these decks that are bonkers like that. That Font of Misfortune, like, as soon as you lay it, hey, for the next 4 turns you can't remove or can't return stuff. Also help against Blinding Beetle. Blinding Beetle moves them, it doesn't discard them. So none of this would really help Blinding Beetle. Horn Crab. Blinding Beetle is still move. Like, Crushing Charger is move. It's not discarding. That's the way to get around Draga Hoarder, is the Crushing Charger, stuff like that. But, yeah, I mean, like, there's cards like that are good in these certain circumstances that just need to be, in a sense, buffed. Like, their tech cards need to be buffed. It's their main cards that are so overpowered that their tech cards are never run because they don't do anything. Like, you just put the Font of Misfortune in, it's like, okay, our graveyard has burn, everyone go for it. Then it's like, okay, Shadow Puppet or, Thunder Slugget or whatever, now I can return stuff from my graveyard. now I can just do whatever I want. Because it's only 4 turns, too. It's not like the next 4 times they try to return stuff, like Drago Hoarders, they can't, right? Like, you're not, the next 4 times your opponent tries to return stuff from the graveyard, they can't. Because that would be a little bonkers, because I think that would only work against Dread. There's not a lot of decks out there that return stuff from the discard pile as much as Dread, so I think it's really only made for Dread. But then all they have to do is just Shadow Puppet this, and it's gone. Like, that's what you kind of have to do. So Dread does need a big overhaul, in my opinion, because there's a lot of problematic cards in here that need to be changed so that they don't just get the best insane late game value, and the only way to beat it is with stall. That's really the only way to beat it. Sad to say. On to Mountain. I'll do the combos another time. I just want to go through the action cards right now. Colossi Idols. Unless Boulder Feast rotates out, I don't think they should have both of them. If anything, Colossi Idols should heal for 2. I think healing for 4 is a bit too much for this condition to it. I know there's a lot of cards there that say like heal for 2 if you late a combo, do something else. I think Colossi Idols should only heal for 2 if it's going to be a tech card and not just a big healing card. Should be like an attack would be better to give them permanent burn and get a little damage or something too. I mean, yeah, there's a whole bunch of tech cards that they could just build new ones. Cowboy Hat Valor says Colossi Idols. Yeah, Colossi Idol. I mean, you don't run it for healing, you run it for the tech, which means the 4 healing is a major bonus. That I think it should be. Hey, it really is just why run Boulder Feast when you could run Colossi Idols? You should only get 2 healing. There should be a 4 healing difference to something that gives you like, hey, you can't play combos. Okay. And it's like, well, you're losing to a lot of aggro. Switch in the Boulder Feast. So, like, you don't just have, like, the best healing in the game for control as well. Like, that one, I think, Colossi Idols needs to be changed, in my opinion, if it's going to stick around. Crystal Maze already did get changed. That's fine. That one got nerfed, which is fine. Everrock Racer, I really don't see a whole lot of people play, so I don't know how well this is going to do. But maybe this one also should be attack action cards. Maybe that should also be action cards and not just buffs, or combos. Exterior Defender's getting rotated out, so I'm fine with that. Fire Sparker I thought was a really unique card that I never saw play. Because there's really no need to, because like the times you want to lay Fire Sparker is after a Vine Lash. And with Mimicking Horrors, Fire Sparker just becomes dead. So there's no point in laying it. Geode Hatchling's getting rotated out, that's fine. Yeah, everything else in here seems fine. Because, I mean, there's not a whole lot of cards that seem bonkers overpowered in Mountain. It's just they have really good synergies with one another. Like this is 2 damage if you're going to be playing a combo. Draw 2 cards. Like Colossi Idol should be something like that. Like 2 damage or 2 healing. You can't play combos. Like, neither of you can play combos. I think the healing is too much for a Colossi Idol. Stubborn Emberack got a nerf. Stone Scribe kind of got a nerf. In my opinion, Stone Scribe should maybe have 3 corners. That's a lot of time to wait for stuff to expire. To at least to store things. I think it should only be 3. You have to really time it properly. So that's fine for those. Just Colossi Idol, I guess, is the only one. In my honest opinion, Mountain is one of the better balanced orders. I would say yes, because Mountain is the very generic order. Mountain is the, like, it's, if you play an RPG, it's the warrior, right? He has very good strength, very good health. Doesn't need to do a whole lot. He just has, like, hey, 6 healing, hey, 5 damage. Good defense, good everything. Like, that's what Mountain is just really good at. It doesn't have a whole lot of utility or synergies. It's starting to get them with elementals, but it just has, hey, base 6 healing, hey, base 5 damage, hey, Mountain Fort, here's just damage prevention. Really good damage prevention. That they really didn't give it, like, almost good synergies or good utilities. They just gave them really good base cards. That's why it feels balanced, because you don't need to play things synergistically. You don't need to build a deck around a theme. You just put Mountain together, and hey, you have a good Mountain deck. Dolo was the #1 aggro deck before Dolo got nerfed and all that stuff, because of just how good values you could get out of some of the cards. It didn't need to run synergistic like with Astro, where you need to have a Lunar on top or anything like that. It didn't run Nature, where you needed to have a certain forest buffs or need to have a certain amount. It did its thing, and it did it well, without having conditionals to increase it. It just did base stuff, and it was awesome. Yeah, it's very balanced, but not good utility. And it didn't need utility, because back then, not a lot of things utility were bonkers nuts, that just getting good value out of your cards was what you needed, and that's why Mountain was so amazingly good. Let's see here. Now we're on to Nature. Nature actually feels pretty balanced after they did a lot of their nerfs. Corrosive Spirit's going out, but it is buff action cards. There's a lot of cards that say action that are good, and a lot of cards that don't, that should. What else? What else? What else? That one's getting rotated out, so I'm not worried. I mean, Insect Swarm it's a good buff, but it's just 1 damage at the start of your turn. Maybe make it so it can't be increased by effects. I don't know, but insects right now don't have much going for them, so maybe that would be a big nerf to insects or anything in general. Mantix Raider's getting rotated out, so that's fine. All those getting rotated out, that's fine. Pollen Weaver's getting rotated out. Root Singer's getting rotated out. Spectral Web is one that really needed the burn and all that stuff, so I'm really happy that Spectral Web got nerfed. I don't like the Wasp sometimes. It's bonkers in a buff-heavy nature deck. I mean, yeah, it's what it is. And if, like I said, if you want to go buff-heavy nature, that's the theme you go with. The 18 buff damage that you... Oh, 16 damage, the combo. Yeah, the Treetop Tribunal. Yeah. The only way around it is if you defend or if you have Mari Bard. That's the only way around it. I'm actually okay with it, but it does lead into a lot more of OTK style. It does lead into a lot more OTK style. Maybe if it said, like, because it can't be removed, on the 4th corner, the other person only gets 1 action. So you can't just go bonkers nuts. Maybe that's the drawback to dealing 16 damage in a turn. But I don't know. There's ways to get around it. I've seen a lot of people tech into it too. A lot of the items right now just have defendability. Some people put in a tome just so they can defend every turn and make it so that thing doesn't hit them. There's a lot of things to get around that one, so that one doesn't seem bad. But yeah, it definitely, because of that buff and because of Vine Lash, Nature really does utilize just its OTK synergy really well, and that's why Mimicking Horror needs to go. Mimicking Horror needs to go. Because it was in... Mimicking Horror was made to be in Dread so it could do fun stuff with, like, Soul Trader, but all you need to do is run a Shadow Weapon in this, include Shadow Puppets for more buff removal outside of Nature, and run Mimicking Horror. That's all you gotta do. And then Nature becomes OP. Yes, if it just states buff, it includes combo buffs as well. Unless it says the word action, it includes combos. Unless it says action to it, it includes combos. Is Ambush? Oh, Ambush is so much fun. Ambush is like the Shatter Blast of Nature. I think it's really well done. Yeah, really, that's the only one. Actually, did I even say anything in Nature needed to get changed? Nature feels pretty balanced right now. Nature feels pretty good with everything that it does, because the only thing that makes Nature broken is when you splash Dread into it. The only thing that makes Nature broken is when you splash Dread into it and really get what Dread's Graveyard Recursion is. Yeah, no problem, truth be told. No problem. Okay, so that's Nature. Nature is actually fine. So really it's just Dread and maybe Astral, which are the top tier decks right now. But yeah, this is exactly right here what Abyss Tentacles needs. Unique and Burn. So you can only have one on the board at a time, and you can't bring it back from the graveyard. Either that, or give it Unique, and have it 4 clunky corners. I do think that Tentacles needs a nerf in some way, shape, or form. I do think it. You can all hate me on it, because if you love playing Dread, it's your favorite card, I understand. If you love smashing it into decks that you run item abilities, I understand. This card, Bubble Gnasher. Bubble Gnasher is hardly ever run, which is funny. It's very, very ever rarely run, because it's like it's one card that can at most remove like 5 buffs. If this card says like your target's 2 rightmost buffs, people would start running Bubble Gnasher. But it's never run. because people always remove it and you never get any value out of it. Razor Gresham, I play your Dread Zeppelin at the moment with a few replacements. I think Graveyard is such a worth opinion in this deck. Gorge Stalker as well. Graveyard, I would say yes. Gorge Stalker, no. I think Gorge Stalker slows that deck way too much down. I think if you add in Gorge Stalker, you should be playing a different style. Graveyard, I can see a Graveyard or two. But I think Gorge Stalker would slow that deck down way too much, because the deck really needs to utilize not using its action, or not using its ability triggers. It needs to just let the board state go, because it doesn't have a whole lot of card draw. But I mean, if it's working for you, awesome. Awesome. I know I tried Gorge Stalker in it, and it slowed the deck way too... It made it way too slow. In my opinion. Actually, I took out Bone Reapers, too, because the healing I wanted to get out of Devourer, and I wanted to get more damage just with Mateship. I tried to just make a more consistent deck. But if you're having awesome fun with it, great, excellence. I'm really happy to hear that. Bubblefish or Nemesis? Bubblefish is fine. I don't think it needs 2-3 corners. I think it can be 2-2-3 to kind of balance it out with Mossridge Defender. Excellency. I mean, if it's working for you, awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. But when I was playing it, it just slowed me down way too much, where I was doing an ability for like 2 and 2, and then I would draw 1 card, and it was just way too slow in my opinion. If you add in the Shade package, because you're triggering abilities more often, so you can draw cards. If you put in the Abyss Hoarder and draw cards, then it'll be good. But I just found it to be way too slow. But I'm glad you're having fun with it, though. Yeah, Bubblefish, I mean, Bubblefish seems fine. You could just have it be 2-2-3 to make it a different Mossridge, because otherwise this is just... Mossridge is 3-2-2, and if it wants to compete with Bubblefish, it has to be 3-3-2. But Bubblefish is just... It's a better Mossridge, in my opinion. It's a better Mossridge. This is getting rotated out. That's fine. Confused Shaman got the best nerf in the game, I think. God, I hated that card so much. Getting rotated out, getting rotated out. I think Dust King is a really good damage. I think 3 is perfectly fine for it. And the Astral Bubblefish is X333. Yeah. It means that you literally can't play it proactively. It means that you can't play it on the first turn you lay it. You have to prepare your damage reduction. You can't just, like, if you know you're gonna get hit next turn. Oh, I lay the Icona. What is it? Oracle? Icona. I think it's Oracle. And it's like, well, I'm still gonna get hit, but the next 3 turns I have damage prevention. So you really have to play that card better. But yeah, I mean, Bubblefish either needs to lose 1 or Mossridge needs to gain an additional 3 on a corner to help balance out. Evaporator's getting taken away. Fearless Diver needs an upgrade to be 3 or more water buffs. I think 4 is way too much, unless they start giving water buffs clunky corners or more static, or just have this say Storm and not just water. Because if you look at Lightning, static, clunky corner, static, static. Where's another one that's lightning? I already said Electro Hopper. Flood Zapper, static. There's so many buffs on here that are static for Storm. Well, Clunky Corner. Clunky Corner. That it really... Fearless Diver needs to be reworded so it's easier to get off, because otherwise it's dead. In the water, so to speak. Because A, there's not enough good water buffs to have it run, or it needs to be on a 3rd corner where you can lay it as your water buffs are in there, and you can hopefully get this out before they all rotate out. Because it really is just, hey, I lay Fearless Diver, and then your opponent's like, well, I know what he's going to try and do now, so I got to draw for my buff removal. It's way too much of a towel, way too difficult to pull off. It should be either down to like 3 or more water buffs in play, or like maybe 3 or 4 storm buffs in play. Something, or just 4 more buffs. Just go wide buff board. Then it'll be fine. But it does need to change. Fearless Diver, I think, is way too weak the way it is. But I don't know what Uprising is going to come out with. Maybe it runs really well with Creebles, which they're really doing, and that's a Creeble card. So maybe Fearless Diver just gets an OP upgrade in the Uprising. Frenzied Zapper, I really love. I think it's an amazing card, but it's never seen run because of a lot of other cards that are just better than it. And this one cannot be increased by damage. So a lot of things like, oh, it's an elemental, but it's still only a 2/2/2. It's meant for multiplayer. That's the only reason. Um, Flood Zapper, I think, is fine, but it's never played because people don't run buffs, because people run aggro. And I think, actually, Flood Zapper, if you go against Dread, they'll just put Wall of Bones up, they'll put all the healing in it. You don't... Flood Zapper does nothing to Dread. It should be, like, deal 2 damage to your target with 4 more buffs, and then, like, +1 damage for each buff afterward. I think if you did that, Flood Zapper would actually see play. Because getting them to 4 is also really difficult in a deck that limits... you're really heavy on buff removal, heavy on that. That, like, oh, if you go wide on board, this Flood Zapper is going to start hitting you for, like, 3, 4, 5, 6. And it's all based on your board state. So either you can let your board rotate out so Flood Zapper doesn't hurt you, you remove Flood Zapper or something like that, but just dealing 2 damage to them having a board of, like, 8, that board of 8 is going to kill you every time before Flood Zapper does anything. Creeble Warcry, I think, is A-okay. Lightning Conduit is A-okay for me. Lightning Bringer, I think, is getting rotated out. It was way too difficult to get a hold of in the first place, to deal 5 damage when they have no buffs. Like, almost impossible to get it. Octopuff is never run. Maribard is actually okay the way it is. Soaring Scout's getting rotated out. Storm Shaman got a nerf. Squid is getting rotated out as well. Summoner of Storms I've never seen yet. But because I think Summoner of Storms, the reason it's bad is because it relies you to have elemental buffs in play, when the best increase that elementals have right now is Vortex, which increases elemental damage. So why not just run Spark Wisp over it? Why not just run the Dust King, Dust Fiend? Like, all your elemental cards are attacks. They're not buffs. So I think Summoner of Storms, like, if you run Dread, you can have this be a 7 attack damage in Dread with all your Abyss stuff out. That'll be fine. But then again, why not just run, like, a Spark Witch, which is essentially 2 less damage that is way more consistent. That I think Summoner of Storms is not going to see play unless A, it can be increased, or there's just, like, it has no cap. Kind of how Defiler was. Defiler didn't have a cap. This one needs to not have a cap, and then you'll see this one be played. Because that'll be the big, like, oh, I have, like, 5 out, and obviously this will deal 11 damage as an action card, which is bonkers. Or have this capped at, like, 9 instead of 7. That way at least can be better than a Spark Wisp if you have a wide board. But having it only be 2 damage more than a Spark Wisp, there's no reason not to run Spark Wisp. Especially when there's so many elemental increasing stuff like that, that it just, there's no reason to run it. Like, cap it at 9. Give it the same treatment that Swamp Peddler has, where it can go up to 9, and then you'll see Summoner of Storms take the place of Spark Wisp, I bet. Corvid's rotating. Slug I'm actually okay with. There's ways to get around Slug. Thunderbill. Thunderbill has never seen play because of how bad the water buffs are right now. Thunderbill has never seen play because it only increases your lightning damage and it increases them by water buffs in play, and this is a lightning buff. This is a lightning buff. If this was also a water buff, this would at least increase it by 1. But the water buffs are just so conditional that right now Thunderbill is never seen play. I don't think I've ever played it yet because it's so difficult. It needs an upgrade, or it needs better water buffs to stick around with it. I think Turco Captain is getting rotated out. I think that's getting rotated out. Wave Crasher no one's really seen because no one really runs water buffs, because the deck that it wants to run it is in Blammo. And Blammo is just so hard to go wide on board with. Yeah, those are fine. Those are all fine. Storm is fine. Tech. We've already discussed Tech. This one is never run because it's so difficult for you to expire your buffs. I took a look at my collection. Would I play Pauper? My Dread deck would miss a lot of good cards. No Hoarder, no Weaver, no Tentacles. Exactly. I mean, they're all uncommon. So yeah, there's no reason to run that in Pauper. But Auto Scrapper, I think needs the same treatment that Robot Factory is getting. Where are you? Right here. Where it's 3 clunky corners. I think if you gave Auto Scrapper 3 clunky corners, Auto Scrapper would see play. Auto Scrapper would definitely see play. Um, because it's draw one card, deal one damage. It would essentially take the place of what the heap is right now, because the heap is getting rotated out. That I think Auto Scrapper needs 2 or 3 clunky corners, so that you know you can get it. Because right now Auto Scrapper is so difficult for you to get the best value out of it, because like you have to time all your buffs properly to rotate at the same time, or find ways to get them to literally expire on your turn. And what you really want to do is just get them to the last corner, and then have them expire like next turn. So I think Auto Scrapper needs to get an upgrade to either like 2 or 3 clunky corners where it's just like that, and it's like, yeah, the next 3 that expire I get benefit from. Especially with how many cards in here that say like if they expire you deal damage to yourself or something bad happens. You definitely need to fix Auto Scrapper. I think that would be a better card that would take the place of Heap. Would almost make you want to play buffs in tech, in all honesty. Bone Shooter's getting rotated out. Bot Launcher needs an upgrade. It's so slow. I think if it could get like 6/5, 4 than 3, so it starts off really strong. But it takes so long to get its best value that by the time you're removing your own buffs, your opponent's just letting you remove them, and then they just remove this one because no reason not to. 100 shards in a chest. Nice. Very nice, Livermento. Very nice. Crazed Bomber, I already discussed my workaround for Crazed Bomber. It needs to change if tech as a whole. If tech as a whole is going to change, Crazed Bomber needs to change. And I've already given that. It needs to go down to remove one action, or remove one buff from the recipient. If you remove one of yours, you can remove another one. If you remove a combo buff, remove an additional one. Like if the buff you remove is a combo, you can move up to 3. That kind of thing. So it would almost incentivize you to lay combo buffs in a deck, but if you don't, you can still remove 2. Maybe that'll be fine. Keep it in line, and then if that's the case, keep burn on it. But Crazed Bomber needs to change to make it so that it's not a avoiding conditional, it's a conditional upgrade. Is what Crazed Bomber really needs. That's fine, that's fine. All these cards are fine to work in synergy with another. I think E-System's getting rotated out. That's fine with me. Limb Replacer is just... It's so bad it needs a nerf. It needs a nerf. I could see it being like on the first corner, return a card from your hand. Second corner is just like dormant, doesn't do anything, and then the third corner you get a benefit from it. But for 2 turns, you put cards back from your hand, and then you draw 2 cards. It's literally just going to give you 6 healing, but then why not just run Repair Bot? Repair Bot is so much better, and you don't lose cards from your hand. This card has almost never seen play because it's so detrimental to you. And I understand that tech is like, hey, you know, you want to put cards from your hand back in your deck to avoid all these like other conditions, but just build your deck around it so you don't have to avoid the conditions. You just don't have the drawbacks. People are just going to build that deck, and then these whole, oh, we have ways to avoid the conditions. Those are never going to be played because if you just avoid the drawbacks entirely, there's no reason to play cards that will help you avoid them. So I think Limb Replacer needs an upgrade to have this be nothing, so it can still like get you a card benefit and healing off of it. Or just be like, put 1 card back and then next turn heal for 6 and draw 2 cards. I think that would be fine. Especially if it's losing emergency system. So it's like, hey, you know, if I'll put 1 card back, lay this card, next turn heal for 6, draw 2 cards. Like give it an upgrade to where it's playable. Looper, I'm actually okay with the quote unquote nerf they gave it. I think there's gonna be a lot more fun stuff to be used with it now. Everything else looks fine. Heap is getting rotated. Time Worm, I think, is getting rotated as well. Time Chamber is getting rotated. Time Chamber is maybe another one that should have like unique on it, because that one's just bonkers. Oh no, it said it can't be increased by effects, so never mind. That's fine. That's actually a good nerf for it. But yeah, like there's so many good tech cards that we're seeing right now that nobody is running simply because of Crazed Bomber. And Warp Toad should either be a defend card and only affect you, or only affect action buffs. Only affect action buffs. But this is getting rotated out regardless, so they're fine with it. But yeah, Zarakov Cannon also should be 12 on the third corner, not the fourth corner. Because if there's no reason to run Zarakov Cannon, if you can run Colossi Cannon. It's one less damage, but tech does a lot of fun stuff where you deal damage to yourself first. And literally having a buff that does nothing until you have a combo buff in play with how buff removal is, this needs to either speed up its damage or even make this like 15 damage to be worth running over Colossi Cannon. Because I tried making a Zarakov deck, and it's impossible to have your combo buffs stick. It's like impossible. Dread is the best option, and it's just impossible. It is impossible. So with that being said, guys, I don't think there's any cards in here that need a nerf. I think a lot of these cards are pretty well balanced that they've already given nerfs to. But yeah, you just don't see them because right now, the cards that I discussed are... Is the Embers you made one? You made one what? Just Tekken Subjugator? Are you talking about, oh, you made a Zarakov Cannon deck? Are you talking about the Zarakov Cannon? If you have the list and you're willing to share it, I'd be more than happy to see it. Are you part of my Discord? You can put it in the deck list suggestions. Yeah, I would love to see it, see if it works, because I've tried. But I couldn't get it to work. But if you got it to work, awesome. All the more power to you. I'd love to see the deck. I would love to see that deck. But yeah, with that being said, guys, thank you for listening to my rant on what I believe some of the main nerf cards that are going to stick around need to have. That's just my opinion on them. Take it or leave it. Leave your comments in the video below if this is going to YouTube. So, thank you for listening.